Believe it or not, this is my very first Amazing Yamaguchi figure, so I'm pretty excited to check him out. Amazing Yamaguchi is a line of figures within the Kaiyodo Revoltech series, and they're pretty much known to have really good articulation at the expense of somewhat interesting and stylized sculpting. This is of course the Flash. Another important reason that I wanted to review this figure is because of Unkval by Sexy Ice. Around when Unkval came out, people were mentioning that it's quite similar to Revoltech in terms of cuts and articulation and sculpting. And so I thought we should probably check them out. So join me in this video as we take a look at what Amazing Yamaguchi figures are all about, how they compare with some other figures, for example Sexy Ice and INART stuff, and whether you should perhaps consider them for your collection too. If you have any experience with these or similar figures, please do let me know your thoughts and comments down below. First of all, just a quick shout out to Bombasby who sent this over for a review. If you would like to check out some Revoltech and other action figure stuff, I will have their site linked below. In terms of the Revoltech box, I do like the sleek and minimal design. It is kind of my aesthetic. Older Revoltech boxes kind of had a more flashy design. That's pun not intended. But you know, the box doesn't matter too much because you should probably take your figures out of the box. Inside there are just two trays. There are instructions just folded up and nice and simple, essentially telling you where everything goes and what everything does. There's quite a lot of plastic protecty bits, even though the stuff is the same color. I guess it's still appreciated. Here he is, the man himself. Overall, he's pretty shiny and feels solid enough. I'd say even though I'd never had a Revoltech figure before, he feels exactly how I expect him to, and I would kind of say this is how an action figure should feel. The plastic and build feel like they're of good quality, but not exactly as premium as something like Unkval, for example, who feels a lot more sturdy and substantial. Regardless, I would say the Flash looks quite good, quite a nice, simple design, which is usually what I prefer in my superhero designs. It's kind of a personal thing, I don't exactly like the way his face looks, but I'm sure he looks like that for a reason. He has a nice strong build of course, with the sculpted muscles and definition everywhere. You could say it's a little bit more exaggerated, but that's kind of how Amazing Yamaguchi figures are, they're a little bit more stylized. What do you reckon? You a fan of the Amazing Yamaguchi style, or you prefer a more comic or character accurate design? If we want to compare a more realistic sculpt and proportions like the INART Batman, I think my preference would still be the Revoltech Flash. Sure, INART Batman has finer details and stuff like that, but it's a completely different vibe. I think the Flash looks exactly like a superhero should look. Of course, when I do have time, I will be reviewing the Batman as well. There's a few too many ladies coming out recently. And of course, ladies first. Anyway, you could kind of say the proportions of the Flash are a little bit closer to Unkval, just a little bit leaner. I would say Unkval has a overall cleaner aesthetic, partially due to the color scheme hiding the joints and gaps, and just the sculpt in general. He's got shoulder pads to hide the massive gaps which Amazing Yamaguchi figures usually have. So this helps in terms of aesthetics. If you wanted to hide the shoulder joints of the Flash, you would kinda have to have his arms splayed out a little bit too much. Kinda like those gym guys who try to act bigger than they are. If you have his arms down more naturally to his side, then the shoulder gaps will be a little bit more apparent. So it does take a little bit of practice to pose Amazing Yamaguchi figures. And that's even just for neutral poses. Also, there is a difference in the chest, of course. The Flash has kind of the butterfly chest plates, and Unkval just has a clean chest sculpt. We'll see how different these are in terms of articulation a little bit later. I think apart from that, generally Amazing Yamaguchi figures can be a little bit cut up due to the articulation, as in there's a lot of visible joints and gaps and stuff like that. Kind of personal preference, doesn't really bother me too much. I would kind of say the Flash is more of a fun figure to move and play around with. Kind of just a nice thing to fidget with. Everything moves really smoothly, and again, it's kind of what you expect in an action figure. While Unkval is a little bit more sturdy and premium, You kind of have to take your time when posing him and be a little bit more intentional, if that kind of makes sense. In terms of accessories, the Flash is pretty simplistic. He's got a total of 5 faces. He's got a default stern looking face. He's got a stern face looking to his left. He's got a teeth gritted face looking forwards. Teeth gritted face looking to his right. And a shouting face. It is kind of interesting how you swap these around. Essentially, you pull the faceplate out from under the mask, which is a soft plastic, and then you put the other one in. So it can be a little bit floppy, but I guess it works. In terms of hands, he's got 4 pairs total. He's got default fisty hands. Kind of karate chop running hands. Open hands. And kind of more gesture hands. Otherwise he has stand parts. And he's got a whole bunch of flashy, electric lightning, speed force effect part things. There are 6 big ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 smaller pieces. He's got ones for his ear bits, his chesty bits, and his feeties. For his ear parts, remove his existing ones and then just plug them in. It was a little bit hard to do this because of the soft mask. Just take your time, should be okay. They can be a little bit loose, just be careful there. For his chest part, there is a little stick to gouge it out, or you can just use your nails, of course. Then you just plug the lightning one in. For the feeties, you can plug it into whichever foot you like. And then the other lightning effect pieces, you can kind of just plug them into wherever there's a hole in his body. I found the lightning parts to be a little bit of a hassle to plug into some of the holes. The fitment wasn't exactly perfect. Honestly, I kind of gave up halfway through, so it's a little bit messy. They are pretty cool though, so I'd probably sand a few of them down later on just to make sure they fit better. But as always, just take your time and it should be okay. You can also attach the little ones to the big ones and get really creative there. So while the accessories are seemingly quite simple, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with them. Now let's take a look at that amazing articulation. Head turns well, of course. You can do a little tilty with his head and neck. He can look up a whole bunch. Look down a whole bunch. Straight up, arms raised like this. You can of course rotate them and move them a whole bunch. Depending on the angles, the joints might not look so good. So his butterfly chest joint thing allows him to stretch backwards. And of course flex and reach forwards. This covers his flash symbol a little bit, so it might not look the best. However, the plus side is of course he can cross his arms really well. Reaching backwards, not too bad either. As a little comparison, this is the forward reach of Unkval and Flash. And I guess INART Batman. The Flash has a bicep swivel. He's got single jointed elbows, which can get a little bit gappy, but range is pretty decent. They can of course rotate, and wrist movement is pretty good as well. He does have plenty of torso and hip tilt. Rotation at the waist is a bit better than the upper torso. Upper body tilting backwards looks like this. He can bend forwards a whole bunch. The way the upper back reveals the lower back does remind me of Unkval's sculpting, which is a good thing to avoid gaps and stuff. He does have a soft plastic floaty belt piece which plugs into the back. His legs raise up straight to the sides like so. He can kind of kick backwards and forwards like this. He does kind of have an odd thigh rotation, which I think is quite common in Revoltech. It works well, but sometimes it does pop out. As well as that, the kind of inner thigh part, I don't really understand this little bump, it can get in the way a little bit. If you work with the legs and couple it with the torso, you can kind of make him look like he kicks up really high. And of course it helps with the running poses. He's got a simple knee hinge, but the boot part can be bent and moved as well, so it does make it look like he can bend his knee a whole bunch. This is a little bit different from Unkval, who does have double jointed knees as well as the boot movement. For height, the Flash pretty much comes up to exactly 15 centimeters or 6 inches, so I guess he does fit in well with most stuff. Although I guess you could argue he might be a little bit short compared to the waifus that we usually have around here, but you know, he doesn't look too out of place. Especially with Unkval and Batman around. So I think Revoltech Amazing Yamaguchi stuff is pretty fun and pretty interesting. If you're kinda on the fence and there's a character you like, would recommend giving them a shot. The Flash himself, of course, is a pretty solid figure. If you're in the market for some figures like these, don't forget to check out Bombasby, linked below. And if you would like to see some more reviews, then I've got you covered. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.